tongues vibrating in the hollow of the night. Cold metal ringing out a warning in the pale light. The vibration caught beneath the asphalt skin, waiting for the heavy pressure to begin. Shadows stretching long across the broken concrete floor. The bell tolls once and then it demands some more. Sharp edges cutting through the humid heavy air. A calculated friction spreading everywhere. The phantom voices stuttering behind the thick glass, slicing up the memory of every second as they pass. High frequency artifacts bleeding through the wire, fueling up the engine in the black rubber fire. A jagged imitation of the soul in the machine. The glitch becomes the only truth that can be seen. A diva stripped of solace and fragmented into dust, tossed into the gears that grind away the rust. Steel on steel colliding in the blind spot of the eye, flaring up the gravity and aiming for the sky. The hammer hits the bronze until the melody turns red, waking up the ghost that was sleeping in the shed. Pushing past the limit where the friction turns to flame, writing out a legacy without a human name. It is a heavy impact in the center of the dark, ignited by the friction of a single metal spark. Steel on steel colliding in the blind spot of the eye, tearing up the gravity and aiming for the sky. The hammer hits the bars until the melody turns red, waking up the ghost that was sleeping in the shed. Pushing past the limit where the friction turns to flame, writing out a legacy without a human name. It is a heavy impact in the center of the dark, ignited by the friction of a single metal spark.
Get involuntary and the grip is thin, where the outer metal meets the steel with deep within. A synchronized eruption of the piston and the bell, a story that the sirens are too terrified to tell. Crushing every obstacle that dares to stand in line, on monumental wreckage that is perfectly divine. The chime is getting louder as the distance starts to fade, a sharp and bitter symphony that finally got paid. The vocal fragment spinning like a blade inside a storm, breaking every pattern and escaping every form. Muddy water rising from the river to the street, tread marks turning into something heavy and complete.
The atmosphere is thick enough to swallow up the sound, but the ring and keep on shaking every inch of solid ground. Horizontal motion in the vertical to stone, a kingdom built on adrenaline and heavy breaths alone. The diva screams and islands that the human tongue can reach, practicing the sermon that the fallen angels preach. Aggression is the only currency that carries any weight. When you're sliding through the never-will a crooked iron gate, the bell is swinging fast and now the rhythm is a knife, cutting through the static and the ordinary life. Steel on steel colliding in the blind spot of the eye, tearing up the gravity and aiming for the jive. The hammer hits the brother till the solid beach is red, waking up the ghost that was sleeping in the shed. Pushing past the limit where the friction's just a flame, writing out the legacy without a human name. It is a heavy impact in the center of the dark, ignited by the friction of a single metal spark. Steel on steel colliding in the blind spot of the eye, tearing up the gravity and aiming for the sky. The hammer hits the bones until the melody turns red, waking up the ghost that was sleeping in the shed. Pushing past the limit where the friction's just a flame, writing out a legacy without a human name. It is a heavy impact in the center of the dark, ignited by the friction of a single metal spark.
light. Low frequency shivers crawling up the spine. Trump rattling hard, crossing the county line. Shadow stretch long in the parking lot. Heaviness moving through the mud down below. Old cassettes bleeding through the iron mesh. Cold steel breathing near the shivering flesh. Midnight heavy like a soap. Cold deep hum vibrating in the back of the throat. Pressure in the chest from the bottom of the lake. Bones start to rattle and the foundation shake.
Darkness settling where the street lights end. Around the corner and the river bend. A ghost in the wire and a bolt in the door. Dragging the weight across the basement floor.
Stained glass spirit in a jacket frame. Voices in the static calling out her name. Cut her rearranged like a ransom note. Gold teeth shimmering in a velvet coat.
The city holds its breath in a shallow grave. Counting every dollar that the devil gave. Broken memories on a magnetic strip. Falling off the edge of a sinking ship.
Share the needle skips on a dusty groove. Everything to lose and nothing to prove. Wait for the signal in a muffled sound. 6 feet of silence beneath the ground.
The air gets thinner as the sun goes down. In the hollow heart of a concrete town. Burn a river corridor, a distorted beat. Trapped in the frequency of deep blue sea.
Splash the tape where the vision turns gray. Wash the evidence of the night away.
Hollowed out faces from a tired mouth. Headed for the border in the deep dirty south.
Eye wide open in the suffocating heat. Foots and daps echoing on the vacant street.
A slow drag pulled on a bitter cigarette. Falling through the holes of a tangled net.
The bass is a predator stalking the prop. The wind is a scavenger beginning to howl. Locked in the basement with the lights turned low. Waiting for the furnace to start to glow.
Stained glass spirit in a jagged frame. Voices in the static calling out her name. Cut and rearranged like a ransom note. Gold teeth shimmering in a velvet coat. City holds its breath in a shallow grave. Counting every dollar that the devil gave. Broken memories on a magnetic strip. Falling off the edge of a sinking ship.
None brother. The piston groans beneath the heavy river sill. A city hammered out of iron and dusty guild. I trace the cold geography of a basement wall where rusted gears gather shadows in the hall. These dirty gloves hold the weight of naming rights. The grinding teeth of gears through humid nights. A slow conveyor moves the spirit like a freight. A steady drag against a sinking copper gate. I find my face within the motor and the grease. The clanking rhythm offers up a jagged piece. Not a sound of wings, but the hum of low-volt wire. A construction of the soul in the soot and fire. All the heavy lift of becoming what you are, while the engine burns inside a metal jar. It takes a century to move a single inch against the pressure of the subterranean clinch. The identity is forged in the slow motion grind. And once you grind, down where the roots and the copper veins unwind. The blueprint is a map of the mud and the bone. A foundation post that the tremors have known. No sudden spark, just the friction of the stone. Until the masonry starts to claim its own. Every level pulled is a memory of the strain of mechanical weight that resides within the grain. The mud thick air is a witness to the toil. The name is written in the belly of the soil. We are the friction, we are the steady star. The ancient architecture standing dark and tall. The crank turns over with a lonely skill sound. The definition of a man is found underground, below the street where the ghosts of industry are welding together a brand new history. It is a slow, deliberate labor of the heart, tearing the silence and the wreckage all apart. Oh, the heavy lift of becoming what you are, while the engine burns inside a metal jar. It takes a century to move a single inch against the pressure of the subterranean clinch. The identity is forged in a slow motion grind, down where the roots and the copper veins unwind.
Fueled by so relentless fire. Drive the blade deep into the chrome, throttling the ropes of a broken home. Pump the boys until the lungs turn wide, shatter the glass of the heavy night. Pressurizing in the narrow throat, keep the burning body just afloat, crushing the silence with a heavy hand. Lord of the dust and the wasteland. In a hollow roll, spilling the marrow on the killing floor. Electric needles pricking at the skin, waiting for the actual blood to begin. A mechanical whisper in a low growl, watching the city through a silver scowl. Gears are turning in a jagged dance, leaving no corner for a second chance. Drive the blade deep into the chrome, throttling the ghosts of a broken home. Pump the boys until the lungs turn white, shatter the glass of the heavy night. Pressurizing in the narrow throat, keep the burning body just afloat, crushing the silence with a heavy hand. Lord of the dust and the wasteland. Predators are hunting for the weak to slay. Total blackout in the district center. Only fury lets the chosen enter. Pressure boiling in the copper ghetto. Fists of fury meeting heavy metal. Unleash the storm upon the silent street. Crush the gravel with a rhythmic beat. Voltage banging through the jagged wire. Setting every single soul on fire. Total madness in the danger zone. Claiming power on the broken throne. Roar of thunder watching all the petty statues undergo. Molten copper pouring down the city throat. Lies and water sinking every rotten boat. Grab a little throat of the midnight ghost. Breaking every pillar and the hollow post. Laid against the granite and the frozen glass. Waiting for the lucky lightning strike to pass. Total back out in the district center. Only fury lets the chosen enter. Pressure boiling in the copper kettle. Fists of fury meeting heavy metal. Unleash the storm upon a silent G. Crush the gravel with the rhythmic beat. Voltage breaking through the jagged wire. Setting every single soul on fire. Total madness in the danger zone. Claiming power on a broken phone. War of thunder in the heavy fog. Fearless spirit of the underdog.
The forest canopy collapses into violet sharp hole maps. Heavy gravity drags the mercury through the roots. Iron giants breathe in the cellar of the world. The soil hums with the static of ancient metal. The floor is trembling beneath the weight of shadows. A tectonic grinding beneath the velvet skin. The silence is thick enough to drown the stars. Deeper into the cauldron where the blackness begins. System heartbeat pulse in the crushing deep metallic lungs. Inhaling the gloom of the abyss. The foundation shudders under the synthetic crush. We are dissolving in the roar of the dark. System heartbeat pulse in the crushing deep metallic lungs. Inhaling the gloom of the abyss. The foundation shudders under the synthetic crush. We are dissolving in the roar of the dark. Silicon dirt, tangled in the damp thicket. A voice synthesized from the grinding stone. The frequency vibrates inside the hollow chest. Tunnel currents pulling in good to the core. The floor is trembling beneath the weight of shadows. A tectonic grinding beneath the velvet skin. The silence is thick enough to drown the stars. Deeper into the cauldron where the blackness begins. System heartbeat pulse in the crushing deep metallic lungs. Inhaling the gloom of the abyss. The foundation shudders under the synthetic crush. We are dissolving in the roar of the dark. System heartbeat pulse in the crushing deep metallic lungs. Inhaling the gloom of the abyss. The foundation shudders under the synthetic crush. We are dissolving in the roar of the dark. We are dissolving in the roar of the dark.
Back in the basement where the concrete sweats copper. Riding the iron wheel against the steel hopper. Thick boots stomping on the shattered floorboards, waking up the ghosts of the tenement lords. We got the static coming through the dinner speaker, searching for a truth that keeps the spirit seeker. Dust on the vinyl, spinning like a heavy cyclone, carving out a kingdom sitting on a brick throne. No flash in the pen, no gold in the pocket, just the raw voltage jumping from the socket. The city breathes the hunger and the hunger breathes the heat, tracing all the scars left on the pavement of the street. This is the force found beneath the hollow ground, where the heavy silence makes a massive sound, resonating through the bones of the 94, kicking down the hinges of the heavy metal door. Graffiti on the brickwork, bleeding like a bruise. Nothing left to gain, and I'm out and left to lose. Then I'm staying with grease and the smell of northern rain, clutching on the lightning just to numb the local pain. Low frequency shaking all the jars in the pantry, preaching to the wild and the desperate and the scanty. Analog intentions in a digital decay, keeping all the vultures and the mannequin at bay. No flash in the pain, no gold in the pocket, just the raw voltage jumping from the socket. The city breathes the hunger and the hunger breathes the heat, tracing all the scars left on the pavement of the street. This is a force found beneath the hollow ground, where the heavy silence makes a lot of sound, resonated through the bones of the 94, kicking down the hinges of the heavy metal door. This is a force found beneath the hollow ground, where the heavy silence makes a loud sound, resonating through the bones of the 94, kicking down the hinges of the heavy metal door.
Within the chrome,
Pistons hammer at the iron gate, the seconds buckle under heavy weight, calculated fire in the narrow vein, stripping every shadow from the brain.
still on scene, gaps cutting deep and lean, the violent gears of an unseen machine. No room to breathe within the jagged frame, as gravity forgets its ancient name. The friction sparks against the grind, a brutal surge of cold design. The needle dips into the searing white, velocity is bleeding through the night. Pressure coils around the hollow bone, a frantic pulse within the chrome.
A razor edge across the blurry map, the universe is caught inside the trap. Bolts are shaking in the high-pitched air, stripping every layer from the rare.
Torque is twisting till the glass begins to crack. There is no mercy on the silver track. Kinetic fever blows the sky apart. A hollow thunder and a metal heart. The friction sparks against the grind, a brutal surge of cold design. The needle dips into the searing white, velocity is bleeding through the night. Pressure coils around the hollow bone, a frantic pulse within the chrome.
needle jumps a track upon the heavy pounding flood. A chemical combustion racing through the rushing blood. The static in the wires turning red with sudden heat. The asphalt screaming underneath the crushing of the beat. The hammer hits the amber with the jagged iron sound. We leave the heavy shadows for the higher hollow ground. The friction generates a spark, the lights of frozen air. A million volts of movement stripping every sorrow bare. The mountain splits wide open just to let the thunder pass. Our shadows shatter pieces of a brittle looking glass. The gravity is broken by the force of sheer intent. The energy is borrowed but the spirit is unspent. Yeah. Cold fire burning up the flame. Driving it through the sheets of rain. Every muscle built to snap and point against a gale. Tearing down the curtain at a heavy iron veil. The momentum is a physical and frantic kind of grace. Moving at a velocity that time cannot erase. The clock is ticking backwards as the engine starts to roar. A wild and reckless shaking on the dark and dusty floor. The sky is turning orange like a harvest moon on fire. A frantic desperate climbing up the rusted jagged wire. The wind is singing secrets that the weary never know. The frantic pace is heavy but the spirit starts to glow. The barricades are yielding to the pressure of the tide. There is no longer any hollow place for us to hide. The jagged edge of light cuts the heavy velvet night. We dance upon the wreckage in the blinding silver light. The fever is a master that we willingly obey. The momentum carries everything the shadows took away. The pressure builds until the dead begins to finally break. The earth is shuddering beneath the heavy giant crake. The pulse is like a piston through the center of the dark. The finish line is nothing but a faint and distant mark. Yeah. Cold fire burning up the vein. Driving through the sheets of rain. Every muscle pulled to snap and point against the gale. Tearing down the curtain in the heavy iron veil. The momentum will a physical and frantic kind of grace. Moving at a velocity that time cannot erase.
That asphalt bleeds under the weight of a stating southern moon. Thick grease in the air with the freight train cease to croon. A rusted needle scratching circles on the graveyard spin. The city holds its breath till the concrete cracks begin. Static crackles through a wire hanging from a rotted pine. We are counting shadows, dragging heavy chains across the line. No redemption in the water, just a silted heavy flow. Digging out the cellar where the bitter tubers grow. The coil tightens down the throat of every passing hour. Thirsting for a rain that never yields a single flower. Underneath the floorboard something sharp begins to stir. The facts are living blur until the faces are a blur. This is the crush of the valley when the lights go cold. The silver story that the hollowed out survivors told. Grip the iron handle till the knuckles turn to chalk. While the ghosts of Tennessee begin their midnight walk. Never letting off the trigger, never finding any peace. Just a mountain burden and a refusal of release. Empty shells of houses staring with their window eyes. Watching for a savior in the bruised and local skies. The preacher traded mercy for a pocket full of lead. Banking on the silence of the unremembered dead. I can hear the needle skipping on the gospel groove. Wait for heavy machinery to make the final move. Brick by black and brick rebuild a monument to spite. Fueling up the engine in the deadest part of night. The coil tightens round the throat of every passing hour. Thirsting for a rain that never yields a single flower. Underneath the floor of something sharp begins to stir. The facts are living blur until the faces are a blur. This is the crush of the valley when the lights go cold. The silver story at the hollowed out survivors cold. Grip the iron handle till the knuckles turn to chalk. While it goes to Tennessee begin the midnight walk. Never landing off the trigger, never finding any peace. Just a mountain burden and a refusal of persist. It is the sound of the friction in the basement of the soul. Searching for a fragment, trying to make the broken whole. But the weight is a mountain and the mountain never moves. Trapped inside the canyon of the prehistoric groove. Keep the pressure on the chest, keep the malice in the lung. The greatest hymns of agony of those that stay unsung. This is the crush of the valley when the lights go cold.
over to a story that the hollowed out survivors told. Grip the iron handle till the knuckles turn to chalk, while the those who told me see the in the midnight walk. Never letting off the trigger, never finding that at peace. Just a mountain bathing in the confused of the peace. This is the brush of a valley when the lights go cold. The silver story that the hollowed out survivors told. Grip the iron handle till the knuckles turn to chalk, while the ghosts of Tennessee begin the midnight walk. Never letting off the trigger, never finding any peace. Just a mountain bathing in the refusal of release.
Piston crown is fixed against the iron sky. Cold traction pulls the gravity through a needle light. A sequence holds within a grip of heart and steel. The teeth of progress grind upon a frozen wheel. There is no kinetic leap within this heavy frame. Just the silent pressure of a nameless game. Mechanical momentum held in a static chest. The long sustainers breathing where the shadows rest. Control and dim, the hollow chambers overflow with the dark persistence that the wires know. It is the hole that never breaks the light. A heavy anchor swinging through the synthetic night. Bolts are tightened down against the swelling sound. A muted thunder buried deep beneath the ground. The lever stays at zero while the tension climbs between the polished gears of these fractured times. No spark escapes the housing of the black machine. Only the steady pulse of the vast unseen. Mechanical momentum held in a static chest. The long sustainers breathing where the shadows rest. Control and dim, the hollow chambers overflow with the dark persistence that the wires know. It is the hole that never breaks the line. A heavy anchor swinging through the synthetic night. Mechanical momentum held in a static chest. The long sustainers breathing where the shadows rest. Controlled and dim, the hollow chambers overflow with the dark persistence that the wires know. It is the hole that never breaks the line. A heavy anchor swinging through the synthetic night.
Iron ribs grinding on the bedrock mantle. A breath of sulfur heavy in the lung. The shadow down here is too thick to handle. Where the lungs of the surface go unstrung. The crushing weight of a milestone, deep within the hollow of the earth. No salvation found in the marrow bone. Just the tolling of the dark for all it's worth. The hollowed road of the tunnel screams a tectonic vibration beneath the hill. Swallowing the wreckage of a daylight dreams in a cathedral made of cold black steel. There is no exit in the shifting dirt, just a steady pulse of a steady pain. Where the damage clings like a satin shirt and the silence is lets the spirit rise. There is no mercy in a place like this, just a heavy blindness for the weary eyes. The world above is a ghost of a thought, while the subterranean fever starts to burn. The peace you sold is the prison you bought to a destination from which no souls return. Deep down in the throat of the abyss, where the pressure never lets the spirit rise. There is no mercy in a place like this, just a heavy blanket for the weary eye. The world above is a ghost of a thought, while the subterranean fever starts to burn. The peace you sold is the prison you bought to a destination from which no souls return.
Are closing like a giant fist, calculating every staggered stride, wrapped in a veil of a poison mist, with nowhere left for a man to hide. The sound bounces off the jagged wall, infinite and vast inside the tightest cage, watching the empires of the sunlight fall, writing the ending on a stony page. Deep down in the throat of the abyss, where the pressure never lets the spirit rise. There is no mercy in a place like this, just a half-split blankets for the weary eyes. The world above is a ghost of a thought, while the subterranean fever starts to burn. The peace you sold is the prison you brought to a destination from which no souls return. Deep down in the throat of the abyss, where the pressure never lets the spirit rise. There is no mercy in a place like this, just a heavy blankets for the weary eye. The world above is a ghost of the thought, while the subterranean fever starts to burn. The peace you sold is the person you brought to a destination on which no souls return.
The iron gates are frozen shut tonight. A heavy velvet weight descends upon the floor. The shadows stretch their fingers toward the light, and ancient dust begins to settle near the door. No movement stirs the stagnant heavy air. The silence holds its breath within the hollow hall. A presence lingers on the spiral stair, waiting for the final brick to crumble and to fall. The clock has stopped its ticking on the wall. The pendulum is paralyzed amid the swing. The darkness grows to swallow up the hall, while nothingness prepares a bitter tooth to sting. The wax is dripping slow from every wick. The flame is dying in the bottle on the tile. The atmosphere is growing damp and thick, stretching out across the empty, lonely mile. There is no mercy in the architecture here. The pillars lean against the crushing weight of time. We disappear inside the logic of our fear, ascending through a ladder made of salt and lime. The windows look out on a sea of black. The mirror shows a face that isn't mine or yours. There is no looking down or turning back, when every exit locks its silver secret doors. Underneath the floorboard something breathes, slithering through cracks and tangled wiring veins. The canopy of night begins to wreathe around the ghost of everything that still remains. Take her from the cellar of the bone. The mirror turns to liquid and the pulse slows down, leaving every witness all alone to where the heavy iron of a rusted crown. The ceiling presses down into the gaze. The corners of the room begin to blur and bleed. A labyrinth of gray and shifting haze, planting out the garden of a wicked seed. are drowning out the vision of the truth. There is no mercy in the architecture here. The killers lean against the crushing weight of time. We disappear inside the logic of our fear, ascending through a ladder made of salt and lime.
The metal shutters beneath the sofa sky, tires biting hard on the asphalt bone. A sudden twitch of the wrist to stay alive. Gravity is a heavy debt we never own. Every second stripped a layer from the soul, looking for the center of an control. Roll on. Steel grinding teeth against the moving earth. The smell of burning rubber fills the hollow chest. Calculated risk determine what it's worth to put the centrifugal demon to the ultimate test. Lines blur into a mirror gray and black. No man ever found this peace by looking back. Heat rising from the friction of the chase. The needle dances on the edge of the red, trying to outrun the shadow of my face, ignoring every word the cautious prophet said. In the white hot moment where the grip begins to well, we are nothing but the markings of a vapor trail. The pistons hammer like a frantic heart, spitting present to the cooling evening air. Every mechanical pulse is a work of art, tearing through the stillness of a vacant stare. Sparks play a game of tag along the outer rim. The chances of survival looming thin and dim. The road is a razor cutting through the night, demanding a tribute of kinetic might. Velocity is the only gospel left to preach, just beyond the limit of what hands can reach. Patterns from the friction of a chase. The needle dances on the edge of a red, trying to outrun the shadow of my face, ignoring every word the cautious prophet said. In the white hot moment where the grip begins to fail, we are nothing but the markings of a vapor trail. Black water rising through the chrome and the steel. The heritage is hungry and the hunger is real. I wrap the ancient fury in a suit of sharp design, breaking every boundary across the county line. A refined percussion hitting like a violent storm. The ghost of the plantation in a futuristic form.
Pedal to the floor while the graveyard watches close.
sipping on the bitter leaves of a long forgotten rose. I wear the southern thunder like a tailored second skin, letting all the elegant brutality begin. No more hollow prayers in the middle of the square. Just the weight of all those centuries hanging in the air. The city breath is turning cold and turning gray. The old scars find a modern way to play. Quiet teeth behind a grin of perfect white, hunting for the marrow in the middle of the night. Black water rising through the chrome and the steel. The heritage is hungry and the hunger is real. I wrap the ancient fury in a suit of sharp design, breaking every boundary across the county line. A refined percussion hidden like a violent storm. The ghost of the plantation in a futuristic form. Black water rising through the chrome and the steel. The heritage is hungry and the hunger is real. I wrap the ancient fury in a suit of sharp design, breaking every boundary across the cutie line. A refined percussion hidden like a violent storm. The ghost of the plantation in a futuristic form.
The concrete floor begins to shudder deep below, where gravity forgets the heavy debts we owe. A jagged pulse is crawling up the rusted pipes, ignoring every warning sign of faded stripes.
It gathers in the hollow of the dark terrain. A fever burning through the iron and the grain. The pressure builds inside the belly of the earth. A frantic weight demanding some explosive birth. It sheds a skin of silence for a jagged sound, disturbing every shadow that was tightly bound. The walls were sweating mercury and liquid dust as ancient bolts surrender to the sudden thrust.
The underground is breaking through the heavy floor. It doesn't ask permission at the bolted door. A vital momentum swinging like a blade. Ruins of the choices that were never made. The climax rises upward to the frozen stars, healing all the friction and the hidden scars. The underground is breaking through the heavy floor. It doesn't ask permission at the bolted door. A vital momentum swinging like a blade in the ruins of the choices that were never made. The climax rises upward to the frozen stars, healing all the friction and the hidden scars.
The ceiling cracks and lets the jagged lightning in. Strip the carbon metal from the layers of our skin. No more hiding in the tunnels of the cold delay. The acceleration sweeps the barricades away. Oh yeah. Until the peak becomes the only ground we know. Above the wreckage and the tide of long ago. A sudden current racing through the limestone veins, unraveling the tension of the tangled chains. The speed is hungry and it swallows up the light, converting every terror into blinding white. We stand upon the summit of the riding moor, to watch the ending wash against the distant shore. The underground is baking through the heavy floor. It doesn't ask permission at the bolted door. A vital momentum singing like a blade in the ruins of the choices that were never made. The climax rises upward to the frozen stars, healing all the friction and the hidden stars. The underground is breaking through skull heavy floor. It doesn't ask permission at the bolted door. A vital momentum swinging like a blade in the ruin of the choices that were never made.
Climax rises up to the frozen stars.
The asphalt shudders as the tectonic shift begins deep beneath the concrete skin. A subterranean surge gains velocity while the surface remains dormant and thin. It is an inexorable force climbing through the sewer grates and the iron veins. No friction can halt this propulsion as it dissolves the legislative chains. The foundation is trembling with the pressure that refuses to ever subside. A kinetic ambition is rising from the dark where the fog garden once high. We are the heavy pulse vibrating through the layers of the sedimentary rock. No master key is required when the collective will decide to smash the lock. The movement is calculated and steady, despite the chaos it seems to breed. Planted in the shadows, we have become the harvest from a resilient seed. The momentum is absolute, and it lacks the capacity for a hollow retreat. Feel a shuddering floorboards beneath the weight of 10,000 persistent feet. System override initiated. System override initiated. System override initiated. System override initiated. The vertical climb is frantic as the basement floods into the grand hall. Tidal waves up into the splashing against every decorated marble wall. This drive is mechanical yet fueled by a hunger that burns crystal clear. The frequency is shifting into a register that the high towers fear. We are the propulsion that ignores the gravity of the status quo. Watch the energy erupt from the furnaces burning in the depths far below. Elevate the pulse for the flickering lights of the industrial ceiling. Its base the friction as the old skin of the world starts its peeling. Gravity is a suggestion when the collective momentum begins to soar. Wait for the signal to rattle the hinges of the very last heavy door. Right. System override initiated. System override initiated. System override initiated. System override initiated. System over. System over.
Iron teeth grinding on the rusted wire. Cold shadow flickers in the static vibrate. Needles scratching through the dusty floor while ghosts are knocking at the hollow door.
The heavy hammer strikes a crooked nail, watching the ship begin to tilt and fail. A single chime inside an empty room. The clock is ticking like a metal tomb.
The air is thick with a grinding sound. The anchor drags across the frozen ground. No light to guide the way back to the shore. Just a vibration shaking through the core.
Pressure pushing down on the broken scale. Hard edges cutting through the tattered sail. The weight of gears inside a dark machine, crushing the spaces that remain unseen. The heavy thought within the cooling chest, the jagged motion that can never rest. Each salt is burning on the silver rail against the force of the industrial gale.
Why they're dead. The piston rises with a sudden snap, a sudden jolt inside the velvet trap. Torn fragments of a quiet begin to float, caught in the friction of a dry cutthroat. The copper bell is cracked and ringing low, a steady pulse where only poisons grow. Black here. The air is thick with a grinding sound. The anchor tracks across the frozen ground. No light to guide the way back to shore. Just a vibration shaking through the core.
Pressure pushing down on the broken scale. Heartache just cutting through the tattered sail. The weight of gears inside a dark machine, crushing the spaces that remain on. The heavy thud within the cooling chest. The jagged motion that can never rest. Deep salt is burning on a silver rail against the force of the industrial gale. Pressure pushing down on the broken scale. Hard edges cutting through the tattered sail. The weight of gears inside the dark machine, crushing the spaces that remain unseen.
The heavy thud within the cooling chest. The jagged motion that can never rest. Deep salt is burning on a silver rail against the force of the industrial gale.
Pressure pushing down on the broken scale. Hard edges cutting through the tattered sail. The weight of gears inside a dark machine, crushing the spaces that remain unseen. The heavy thud within the cooling chest. The jagged motion that can never rest. Deep salt is burning on the silver rail against the force of the industrial gale.
The velvet shroud descends upon the hollow terrace, where every heavy breath becomes a laden cry. The cellar air is thick with things we never mentioned, just a low frequency vibrating through the stair. I heard the ghost of Tennessee within the hallway, a granny cadence from a town that time forgot. It drifted sideways like a smoke ring in the doorway, tying every fray and nerve into a knot. The dark is humming at the edges of the vision, a saturated purple sinking through the gray. The resolution is a quiet black incision to take the remnants of the frantic world away. The silhouette is stretching long across the pavement until the gravity of evening pulls us down. The aura tightens in a final slow enslavement beneath the pressure of this disappearing town. The speakers rattle with a deep and jagged murmur, a monologue that stumbles through the heavy dust. No longer seeking for a foothold any firmer, we give the gravity our temporary trust. The tension stretches like a wire until it shivers, then snaps into a pool of wide and extinct peace. The reservoir of ancient sound begins to quiver as every captive thought is granted its release. The shade is catching up to every fleeing motion. The static thickens like a salt upon the tongue. A slow immersion in a vast and lightless ocean, the final anthem that the dying day has sung. The dark is humming at the edges of the vision, a saturated purple sinking through the gray. The resolution is a quiet black incision to take the remnants of the frantic world away. A silhouette is stretching long across the pavement until the gravity of evening pulls us down. The aura tightens in a final slow enslavement
pressure of this disappearing town.
Heavy metal dragging on the asphalt floor. 666 shadows creeping through the door. Masked up tight in the back of the black. Load the steel, press it straight to your back. Engine roaring like a beast through the mud. Counting out the hollows, thirsty for the blood. Concrete jungle where the vultures fly low. One wrong turn and the whole world go. Iron fist gripping on the wheel of the grain. Screaming out the window through the pouring rain. Funk drums hitting like a brick to the chest. Put the hollow point straight through your vest. Blade on the dial, make a chilling sound. 6 feet deeper in the cold hard ground. Southside killer with the icy stare. Sulfur burning in the midnight air. Strap the boots tight for the final ride. Nowhere to run and nowhere to hide. Aggression rising to the breaking point. Blood on the floor in this jagged joint. Pushing the pedal till the metal snaps. Caught in the jaws of the lethal traps. Darkness consuming every ray of light. Welcome to the horror of the eternal night. Strap the boots tight for the final ride. Nowhere to run and nowhere to hide. Aggression rising to the breaking point. Blood on the floor in this dagger joint. Pushing the pedal till the metal snaps. Caught in the jaws of the lethal traps. Darkness consuming every ray of light. Welcome to the horror of the eternal night. Tire tracks burning in the frozen stone. I am the king on this jagged throne. Stacking the wire when the post goes flat. Leaving every witness in the wooden hat. No mercy shown in the belly of death. Still in the breeze, your very last breath. The thunder cracks as the hammer falls. Writing my name on the graveyard walls. Gasoline scent sticking to the skin. Washing away every single sin. Drifting silence through the narrow lane. Feeding the hunger and the sudden pain. Chrome pipes slipping out a jagged lane. Forget the face and forget the name. Memphis grip in the palm of my hand. Ruler of the wasteland across the land. Strip the boots tight for the final ride. Nowhere to run and nowhere to hide. Aggression rising to the breaking time. Blood on the floor with this jagged joint. Pushing the gun until the metal snaps. Caught in the jaws of the lethal tracks. Darkness consuming every way of light. Welcome to the horror of the eternal night. Strap the boots tight for the final ride. Nowhere to run and nowhere to hide. Aggression rising to a breaking point. Blood on the floor in this jagged joint. Pushing the pedal till the metal snaps. Caught in the jaws of the lethal traps. Darkness consuming every ray of light. Welcome to the horror of the eternal night. The pressure builds beneath the asphalt crust. Solid iron grinding down to rusted dust. Gravity is folding in a frantic grip. Feel the jagged edge begin to lose its slip. A subterranean fever starts to rise. No redemption found beneath these hollow skies. Everything is compressed to a single spark. Moving faster through the suffocated dark. Concrete veins are bursting in the deep. Promises the shovel couldn't hope to keep. Steel girders bending like a broken spine. Searching for the ending of the bottom line. The heat is screaming through the heavy floor. Hammering against the locked and bolted door. Every second tightens like a closing fist. Lost inside the static of a toxic mist. Now the surge is breaking through the wall. Watch the heavy timber start to bend and fall. Total forces localized and sharp. Striking like a lightning bolt across the dark. The frequency is severed at the peak. None of us can find the words we meant to speak.
everything is burning in the glare of day.
Electric current surging through the mud, pumping like a violent and frantic blood. The ground is shivering beneath the weight, tearing through the hinges of a rusted gate.
No more room for breath inside the shell. Climbing up the throat of a silent well. Total chaos focused to a needle point, cracking every fiber and every joint. The rhythm of the earth is snapping clean. Nothing left to see and nothing left to mean. Engines stuttering until they stop, writing warnings on the jagged cellar wall. Tunnels collapsing in a sudden rush, turning every mountain into liquid slush. The climax isn't coming, it is here, swallowing the remnant of the final fear.
Now the surge is breaking through the wall. Watch the heavy timber start to bend and fall. Total force is localized and sharp, striking like a lightning bolt across the dark.
The frequency is severed at the peak. None of us deny the words we meant to speak. Obsolete and blinding in the fray.
Everything is burning in the glare of day. Now the surge is breaking through the wall. Watch the heavy timber start to bend and fall. Total force is localized and sharp, striking like a lightning bolt across the dark.
The frequency is severed at the beat. None of us can find the words we meant to speak. Absolute and blinding in the fray. Everything is burning in the glare of day.